going on, guys? Steampunk Slicer Gaming here again with another video. Hope you guys are all doing well. Picked this up at a Bookman's recently. It's a original DMG Game Boy. You can see right there, DMG-01. Open this up. You might not be able to see it. Yeah, forget that. But anyways, it's from 1989. This is the Game Boy that started it all. Just for those who aren't familiar with what Bookman's is, it's kind of like a used entertainment store. Sell books, obviously, movies, video games, art, all sorts of stuff. Pretty cool if you're in Arizona. Definitely would recommend checking it out. Also with this, I picked up the original Tetris for the Game Boy. There's a little bit of residue on the back there. Not sure what that's from because the sticker was right here and that peeled off no problem, so might clean that up. But this thing works great. Just pop it in. I already put 4 AA batteries in there. This thing's a tank. It's pretty wide. Has a good weight to it. This thing had the external connector port cover in there, so that's pretty cool. You don't see a lot of these on these old DMGs. They just get lost. Pretty good condition overall. There's a slight scratch or a line right here. It might just be dirt. There's a little bit of dirt in here. Dust collected behind the buttons. The screen, I don't know if you can see that. Some pretty good condition. So I'm quite pleased with that. My original Game Boy Advance that I have, which isn't out here with me, unfortunately, but the screen protector is pretty scratched up, so it's amazing that this one is in such good condition. And I've already seen if it was glass or not. It's plastic. So no one's been in here as far as I know, other than Nintendo. But let's just power this on. Reads games fine. There's the classic Nintendo logo there. So yeah, works great. Contrast wheel works. The volume isn't the loudest, especially compared to that Retro 6 amp modded Game Boy that I did in the prior video, but hey, it's pretty good for its time. So what I did not notice when I got this, and it's not really that big of an issue, I got this for a pretty good price, is inside of here there seems to be a little bit of battery corrosion. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. Let's see if a little bit more light will help. Yeah, see that blue right there in the top or left of the battery terminal? That's not supposed to be there. But all things considered, it's in pretty good condition. And like I said, it reads games fine. I've only had one game that didn't read properly when the Nintendo logo scrolls down. If it's not perfect, then it won't load the game. I think it's some sort of measure to prevent like unlicensed games, from what I've read, but other people have found a way around that because it has something in the console itself that it checks against, so they've been able to exploit that. But if you want to read about that, I actually include a link in the description below about that. Pretty cool website article. But yeah, without further ado, let's crack into this bad boy and see what the deal is. You'll need a tri-wing bit. This is a Y1. These are used on most Nintendo consoles. Sometimes they'll have Phillips heads on the back, but for the most part, your tri-wing has the best bet. I usually would say the Y1 or like a Y2 or 2.5. It's probably the best size just because it won't slip. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Y-wing screws you have to get out of here. And you're in no rush. Just take your time. Make sure you collect all the screws, because these are probably the best quality ones that you'll find. As I said in my previous video, it helps to work on a towel of some sort to prevent screws from bouncing around or losing hardware. It's never fun. There's all the screws out. Gonna take out this plug here, set that aside with the screws. Now when you open this, you want to be very careful because it's connected by a ribbon cable there. And you don't want to damage that. So you just pull straight down on that. It'll come out. And there we go. We have the two halves of the Game Boy system. This is the display part. There's the contrast wheel, your speaker, some various, I'm not sure. I'm not gonna make a fool of myself. I'm just gonna say the various electronical components. Obviously this goes to your screen. Behind here are the buttons. So we'll pull this board off and then clean that area, and then we'll work on the other side. So on the front half, with the display and the buttons and the speaker and everything, not everything, obviously, because half of it is missing, but you'll have 10 Phillip head screws that need to be removed. And same thing applies as when taking the two halves of the shell apart. Just take your time. Alright, with those screws out, ready to take the front PCB out. Do be aware that this LCD is held in place by adhesive. It might be stronger or weaker depending on the age of it. Obviously these are pretty old. Mine came out relatively easy, so as with anything, just take your time, go slow. If something isn't working quite right, you're coming out, don't force it, but there we go. Just gonna set that there. And here are the conductive pads, buttons, start and select, A and B conductive pad, and the A and B buttons. And those have some pretty serious grime on them. It's probably not as bad as some people have seen, but it's definitely not the best. There on the front you can see that old adhesive a little bit better. It's pretty much plastic at this point. Stuff on the back here still has this heat, a little bit of tackiness, so I'm gonna try and keep that intact and reuse it when we reinstall all the components to this. So first things first, once we get the board out, just make sure there's no dust or anything on there. It looks like there might be a little bit of battery acid right there in the middle of all the D-pad directions. Actually, let me check the button. Or actually, you know what? That might just be from the D-pad, where it kind of pivots on. Nonetheless, we're gonna clean that up. Get some 91% isopropyl alcohol. 99%, 75%, whatever you can find. The less water that's in it, the better. Gonna get Q-tip and just gently scrub those pads. This helps remove any oxidation that may have formed over the years that this Game Boy has been around. Not much is coming up, but that's not a bad thing. We'll put it off the right direction on the D-pad. Other than that, this thing's pretty clean. And you can see there, let's dry this up a little bit. Actually, looks like earwax just came off of the B button, or rather, A button. Let's clean that spot up a little bit more. And there we go. You can see on the D-pad there, or where the D-pad rests, it's not that much better, but it's a little bit. I'm wondering if that brown stuff came from this area. It looks like there's a little bit of, I don't know if that's like flux residue or what, but we'll just leave that there. You also want to clean the speaker. Like I said in my previous video, these aren't very loud to begin with, and if you get any dirt or anything on there, like what's on the Q-tip, just makes them that much more quiet. You just want to be gentle with this. You don't want to puncture the plastic cone or anything. And then, last but not least, we're gonna drip a little bit of IPA, isopropyl alcohol. Don't put any type of IPA in this board. Into the potentiometer dial for the contrast. Wiggle that back and forth. This kind of cleans up any oxidation that may have formed on the contacts that are underneath here. Just helps it read a little bit better. Alright, that's about as much as I'm wanting to do with this. Next thing we're going to do is clean the buttons and the contact pads. So we're going to set this aside. We'll take our buttons here. First thing we're going to do is clean off these contact pads. So on the bottom, let's find one that has a little bit better example. On the bottom of these pads, there's a conductive material or surface, and I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little bit of a reflection there. That's just from it wearing down and smoothing it over time. So we're gonna clean these off just a little bit. You can definitely see it on that one. It's the either A or B button. So what you want to do is just get a normal piece of paper, index card, whatnot, and just put a little bit of pressure on them and kind of scrape off the pad. It won't get all that black stuff off, because that's actually what makes the connection on those pads on the board. But you're just looking to get the pads kind of clean. So your paper will usually end up with some, at least some fine, or paper will end up with some kind of dark streaks on it. That's normal. Gonna do the action buttons. Doesn't need much force. You don't want to break these pads. You can get new ones, but that's just a whole nother expense you might want to avoid. And the start and select buttons. Alright, set that aside. Grab another Q-tip. Just gonna clean out around these buttons. Grime builds up over time. Clean off the bottom of them. Next, we're gonna work on these buttons. These have a little bit of grime on them. You could put these in a sink with some soapy water, but what I'm gonna do is just put a little bit of isopropyl alcohol into a dish. Get an old toothbrush, preferably one that doesn't have like a whole bunch of nasty stuff in there. Get it on the brush. Just scrub at it. And there you go. You probably see that it didn't get all of that white residue off. Some of that might just be the plastic from rubbing up against the shell where this fits in. Goes up and down, so could just be wear and tear. Main thing though is just getting any like dust, dirt, anything that shouldn't be there off of there. So we're gonna set these to the side. And now for the main entree. The reason why we took this thing apart, to get rid of this battery corrosion in here. Just gonna, I can't take that power switch out yet. Gonna turn it on, just discharge any capacitors. Last thing you want to do is short out something that you're trying to fix. So once again, I'm taking my Phillips 0-bit and just disassembling this half of the case, or the console. Alright, 4 screws. And this thing should just lift right out. Like so. You want to make sure that your there's a little bit dust bunny in there. Hello. Go in the trash. You want to make sure that everything comes out and it's not getting snagged up, because you don't want to tear any of these. That'd be sad. Gotta take our power switch, set that aside with the rest of the buttons. Make sure you reinstall that later. The RF shield is looking pretty clean, so I don't think we'll need to do anything with that. I might take it off to clean the shell, but I'm not gonna do anything with that shield. So here you have your, I think this is the power regulator board. This is the audio jack board for your headphones. And then this is the cartridge reader on the back here. This is your DC input for the power cord you could get. the external adapter, and the volume knob. So what we're after is a little bit of blue stuff in there. Looks like cotton candy or toothpaste. It's not that much. Doesn't look like it's spread to any of the board. So that's always a good sign. But we're just going to give that a little bit of a scrub with some isopropyl alcohol. Get our toothbrush. And get that junk out of there. Alright, so no more of that little blue goo in there. Well, maybe a little bit. See if you can't. Get the rest of that out of there. No more blue goo in there. I could say that honestly this time. Nothing on the back side there. Nothing on that terminal. What you're going to want to do also, since we're here, is grab another Q-tip. Just like the contrast wheel, you're going to drip a little bit of alcohol into that volume wheel. Give it a little bit of back and forth, clean off that potentiometer surface in there. If you wanted to, you could get like a can of compressed air, blow out these pins. You don't want to blow into the cartridge reader or into the bottom of any cartridge, unlike what you see in pop culture, because while it does work, what you're really doing is introducing moisture into that section, and that moisture will cause corrosion over time. Next thing we're going to do is just clean off the rest of those battery terminals inside of here. These ones are standalone pieces that are in the shell. You can see here there's a little spring tab that holds it in place so it doesn't fall back out. What you'll need to do is get a small screwdriver, flathead screwdriver bit. Just a screwdriver, and kind of push that down, releases, and it'll slide right out. Do the same for the ones on the bottom, like so. And just like with the one on the board, just get some isopropyl alcohol, scrub these off. If there's a lot of corrosion on here, what you can do is soak them in vinegar for about 15 to 20 minutes. And what that'll do is neutralize the battery acid and make it easier to clean off. And once you clean off the corrosion after it's soaked in vinegar, you'll want to go ahead and just give it a scrub with some isopropyl alcohol, and that'll help get the vinegar off so there's not any more corrosion that you have to worry about in the future. Alright, got these all cleaned up, and I also scratched off and cleaned off some of this old adhesive to where it was mainly down to the plastic with one of these utility blades. It's a straight razor blade. Just like gently go at it. No. Slowly but surely work that stuff up. I also just cleaned it up with some isopropyl alcohol. And what I'm going to do next is use some double-sided tape so I can put this old screen protector back on, because I don't see a reason to not use it, how good condition it is. Other components are clean. Most of the scratches on here, you can't really see that one anymore. Just had dirt in it, so you clean that out. Looks a lot better. I'm gonna set these aside for now. Actually, we need that one. I'm gonna set these aside. and work on getting some new adhesive on here. So what I'm going to use is some double-sided tape. It's thin, it's pretty sticky, reliable, and I'm going to use a X-Acto knife with a new blade on it. So what I'm going to do is just lay the tape, get a little bit more than I need. That way I don't have to worry about fingerprints contaminating it. I'm gonna pull this off camera so I can look at this. And then I'll just lay it on there like so. And obviously there's some overlap, but I'm going to go through with my X-Acto blade and trim up those areas. You don't need a lot of pressure. Let's see if you can see what I'm doing. Basically you just cut right through the tape, barely any pressure needed. Just be careful going around any of these corners. Make sure you don't scratch up the shell. That's not the point. The same thing on this side. It's a little finicky. Go. And there we go. So just peel off the excess. So I'm going to work my way around the entirety of this section here, and then come back and lay on the screen lens. Alright, I got the last strip put on here on the bottom. I just wanted to show you what to do when you have a overlap like between this piece of tape and the piece of tape that I just put on. You can see there's obviously going to be 2 layers of tape, and I don't really want that because I feel like it'll cause some clearance issues. So what I did is I have a little bit of overlap on the outside of the display lens area. I just cut that area and then it'll peel off like so. You don't have to cut the tape on this side usually, just because that's all going to go away, and when you pull it from that side it peels off, just to avoid scratching this area. Down our knife, and then just peel it all off. And of course that part stayed behind, but that's not too big of an issue. As long as you get your X-Acto blade underneath that, should be able to lift it up. And the worst thing that could happen with the tape is you just have to redo it. But I got that last bit off. And now it's ready to put the screen protector on. So what you want to do with your screen lens, screen protector, is just blow it off with some can compressed air. That'll make sure that there's no dust or lint or anything on here that'll interfere with it sticking to your tape. Lay it in there, go from one side to the other, press all around, and there we go. It's nice and flush. It's not going to protrude any more than the original did. If you want, you can go in the back here. Just be mindful if you're trying to keep the old adhesive right here intact. I wouldn't put your fingers all over that because it'll lose what little stickiness it has left. Now that that screen protector lens is back in place, we can start reassembling the rest of the Game Boy. We're going to start with the back of our Game Boy. Install the RF shield. Our 4 screws. Hopefully we kept those separate. And like with all the screws, just back them out until they seat and then tighten them down. They don't need to be torqued on there too much. You don't want to break the plastic on the post or round out the heads. You just need them snug enough to where they're not going to go anywhere. Before we put the rear motherboard in, we're going to want to reinstall these battery posts. So as you remember, they go in and they kind of just snap into place, but since we push these little spring tabs back, we're going to need to push those back in so they actually lock into place. I'm using a square 1 bit just because it fits almost perfectly in there and gives it a nice even pressure all the way around, but you can use whatever you find works. Slide these guys back in. You'll hear a click if you've done it right. If you flip it over, it's not going anywhere. Push on that, won't go anywhere. If you pull up on it, not going anywhere. So that's what we're going to do for the rest of them. Alright, all of our battery terminal posts are in. You gotta flip this over and put the rear circuit board back in. Alright, you want to have your cartridge reader facing down. Get that power board in there. And then line up your audio jack output on these 2 screw posts. This will be taking the 4 small bronze colored screws. The Phillips head. Put this bad boy back in here. So at this point, it won't hurt to pop some batteries into here, but just make sure that everything is still working. Plug your screen in. So, turn it on. We have sound, and we have picture, and we don't have any weird lines. So that's working. I'm gonna move on to the front of the shell and install this. One thing I forgot to do was to reinstall the power switch. Not that big of an issue. It just makes it a lot easier to turn the console on and off. So just pop that in. You'll know you have it in the right orientation. When 1, you can turn it on and off, and 2, whenever you turn it to the on position, that little slot that lines up with this slot or notch on a Game Boy cartridge protrudes like so. Moving on to the front of our shell, first thing you're going to want to do is to drop in all of your buttons. Start and select. These have a hole that line up with the peg. Just make sure you have those going the right way. And your membranes. Blow off the back of your screen lens, a little bit compressed air. Do the same to the LCD. Line up the speaker so it goes in. Notice there's a notch here. That's where the wire goes through. Or not wire, there's a protrusion right here, and that's what lines up with that notch. Just get on there, lightly press it on, make sure that screen adheres to the adhesive. And then take your 10 screws and start screwing the motherboard back on. Do bear in mind that this one, you'll even see that it has a graphic of not to put a screw there. Don't put a screw there. That goes, if you do put a screw there, it'll go straight into the LCD, and that's not good. Just be mindful of that. So now we're going to combine the two. We're going to reattach the screen ribbon cable. I find it helps to have the screen ribbon cable going towards you. Just apply even pressure all the way around. It might take a little bit of wiggling. Just don't do too much. You don't want to loosen anything up. Should go in about that far. We're gonna pop some batteries in here and just make sure that it works. We're on the home stretch, so you just want to carefully fold that ribbon cable. Make sure everything fits together nicely. Lay it down. Might want to spring out on you. That's just the ribbon cable not wanting to be in that position. Just going to make sure that it's folded up the way it should be. And seems to be. See, it wants to open up a little bit. We're going to take our Y-wing, or our tri-wing rather, or Y screwdriver bit. Get these screws that go in the back of the shell, hold it all together, and then we'll be done. Gonna put that external connector cover back on there. Pop in some AA's and our clean and free of corrosion battery terminals. load up Tetris, and cross our fingers. There's the Nintendo logo, and the game boots up fine. Let's make sure all the buttons work. Left and right work. Start works. Not sure what games use the select button on. B button works. Down button works. So that's gonna do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe. You'll see new videos. Have a good day.